Hello everybody, I hope that you're all doing well. So, we finished our beginnings and endings through the Bible, and I was thinking about what we could do next. It came to me, through Catherine, that we could do something about the reasons that we might believe the Christian story. Peter, the apostle, wrote to one of the churches that he looked after, saying, always be ready to give a reason for the faith and the hope that you have. Sometimes I think that we can feel like our faith is just the story we've been told. It begins and ends with Jesus, and let's not ask too many questions about it. But what is it that separates the Christian narrative from an atheist, materialist worldview, the flying spaghetti monster, whatever else we might believe? I want us to reflect a bit over the coming weeks about what makes our faith reasonable, what makes it logically sensible. Because I think that sometimes one of the main barriers for people sharing their faith is that they don't have enough confidence that it actually makes sense. Sometimes people can struggle with the idea of telling people about a dead man who came back to life 2,000 plus years ago. And so they don't want to share their faith. I'm hoping that these videos will maybe equip or at least encourage you to recognize that it's not unreasonable to believe in God. And from that step, it's not unreasonable to believe in the Christian God. So that's the preamble. Let's dig in straight away with one of the classic arguments for the existence of God, as they're known. And this is based on something called the teleological argument. Now that just means it's an argument by design, that we can spot indicators within the universe that the universe has a designer. The way that we're going to look at it today is through something called the fine-tuning argument. As you can probably work out from the name, then the fine-tuning argument's asking the question of whether the universe has to be as it is, or whether it could be some other way. Because if the universe could be however, then there's nothing particularly special about it. But if the universe has to be the way it is for it to exist at all, and therefore for us to exist at all, then maybe that could point to there being something or someone behind it. We're going to be dealing with some ridiculously big figures in this session. I apologise for that. The main thing to bear in mind is that a higher number is bigger than a lower number, and when we're talking about the odds of something happening, then a higher number is less likely to happen than a lower number. So all that preamble being said, let's get into a few comparison figures. In the human body, there are 1 times 10 to the 14th power cells. That is to say, if you drew a 1 and then 14 zeros after it, then that's the number of cells in a human body. That's a lot of cells. We take up a lot of space. There are 1 times 10 to the 20th power seconds since the beginning of the universe. That is to say, if you drew a 1 with 20 zeros after it, that's how many seconds it has been since the Big Bang. That's a long time. If you're playing poker, which I did at school, little aside, there were occasions when I went into school with about 10 packs of cards secreted around my person, because I used to kind of run a little poker ring in the sixth form with some friends, and we'd often be in the middle of a game and a teacher would come along and confiscate a pack of cards, and so we'd just check that he wasn't around anymore and then whip out another pack and carry on our game. In poker, then there's a hierarchy of hands that you can be dealt, with the rarest ones being the best hands to have. The best hand in poker is a royal flush, and that's when you get the 10, jack, queen, king, and ace, all of the same suit. It's pretty rare. So if I dealt out the cards to me and my friends as we began a game of poker, and I picked up my hand and I got a royal flush straight off the bat, then my friends might think that I was cheating because I just dealt myself this pretty rare hand. Or they might say, wow, Phil, that is ridiculously lucky. I don't know how you got so lucky. I'd win the hand, the cards shuffle, deal them out again, and wouldn't you know it, I've got another royal flush. Now this time they are almost certain to say that I am cheating because the odds are so low. Imagine if I dealt 5 hands and every single hand I got a royal flush straight up. Then they would definitely say that I was cheating. The odds of that happening are 1 in 1 to 10 to the 23rd power, which is to say a 1 with 23 zeros after it. That one chance in that number would be 5 royal flushes in a row. We can go even crazier than that. If we covered the entire North American continent in 10 pence pieces, and then we stacked all of those 10 pence pieces up as high as the moon, and then we took that number and multiplied it by 1 billion, and then I blindfolded you, said to you, now in this little stack of 10 pences, there's one that has my signature on it. I want you to reach in and get the one that has my signature on it. The odds of being able to do that are 1 in 1 times 10 to the 37th power. So that's one chance in 1 with 37 zeros trailing after it chance. Me reaching in and grabbing the signed 10 pence. But as ludicrous, as astronomical, as impossible as those huge figures are, they pale into insignificance compared to the fine-tuning of life. There are loads of different figures we could look at. We could look at radiation and that sort of thing. We could look at heat distribution, all that sort of thing. I'm just going to focus on 3 constants that we can look at when dealing with the creation of the universe. The first is the gravitational constant. That is to say, how strong gravity is. Because if gravity was a teeny weeny bit stronger at the Big Bang, then it would have just got sucked back into itself and the universe would never have existed. If the gravitational constant was a teeny bit less, then the matter from the Big Bang would have just dispersed and there wouldn't be no galaxies and no stars and no planets and no humans. The degree of tuning is 1 times 10 to the 60th part for gravity. So that is to say there's one chance in 1 with 60 zeros after it. And if you change just one of those zeros into a 1, then gravity doesn't work anymore. The cosmological constant is the rate of expansion of the universe. Again, if the universe expanded too quickly at the Big Bang, then matter would disperse, nothing would happen. If the expansion didn't happen quickly enough, it would just get sucked back in to itself before we could come about. Cosmological constant, get ready for this one. 1 to 10 to the 120th power. That is to say that you've got a 1 with 120 zeros after. And if you change one of those zeros to a 1, the universe doesn't happen. We're talking ridiculous numbers here, aren't we? It gets better or worse depending on how you look at it. If you hate maths, it gets way worse. The distribution of mass and energy in the early universe. So in those first moments after the Big Bang, what the proportion of mass was compared to the proportion of energy. Any difference in this number, the universe doesn't exist. Get ready for this. So that is 1 in 1 times 10 to the power of 10 to the power of 120. I'm not a high mathematician, but I think that what that means is that if you took a 1 with 120 zeros after it, and then you times that by that amount again, I think that's what it means, then that's the intimate, teeny tiny little bit difference, and the universe doesn't exist. I mean, that is just ridiculous. That makes picking a 10-pence piece out of a stack of 10-pence pieces that covers North America 1 billion times up to the moon. That makes it look like child's play. Oh yeah, I'd do that all day. Do you see how finely tuned the universe is? Even Stephen Hawking said the remarkable fact is the value of these numbers seem to have been very highly adjusted to make possible the development of life. And of course it does. I mean, we're talking about dealing a royal flush like 1,000 times, 1 million times in a row. It doesn't happen by chance. It can't happen by chance. It can happen with a creator. That's the argument for design fine-tuning. Over the next few weeks, I'll look at some of the other ways that we can have a confidence in God as the Christian faith defines him or understands him. And then we'll go from there to see how we might be best communicating that. For now, you take care, stay safe, God bless.